Hi and welcome everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We're delighted to have so many of you joining us today for the MIT Sloan Fellows MBA alumni panel talking with women. One of my favorite topics and one of my favorite opportunities is to talk to alumni who have been through this program. And I am delighted that you're joining us to learn more about their experience. So I will first introduce myself. My name is Johanna Hising DiFabio, but everyone calls me Jo, which is perfectly fine. I'm originally Swedish and came to the United States for college and went to an international school for most of my upbringing, which is why the Sloan Fellows program is so near and dear to my heart. I grew up in a learning environment that is very similar to the Sloan Fellows program and know how rich that can be. So I am the Assistant Dean of the Executive MBA and the Sloan Fellows MBA program. I've been at Sloan for 13 years. Before that, 10 years in the private sector, mostly focused on leadership development with mid-careers, high potentials, and executives. And so delighted to be here to talk to you today about your own development and where you want to go next. I can't talk about our programs without talking about our mission. Our mission at Sloan is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world and to generate ideas that advance management practice. So the amazing research and the amazing new advancements in management practice that is created here on campus is fantastic and helps this world move forward. But it doesn't do so unless it comes out of the walls of MIT, and it does that through our students by building capabilities in organizations through our students. And what I was actually just meeting with the dean of the Sloan School this morning, and we were talking about my programs and the special place that they hold in the portfolio of the programs here at Sloan, really because the executive degree programs have a really quick turnaround on providing immediate impact to the world through our students because of the roles and responsibilities that they have. So today we're going to do a deeper dive into the Sloan Fellows MBA program, which is one of our mid-career programs here at Sloan and is a 12-month program. I'm hoping most of you have learned or know a little bit about this program. I'm going to do a quick 2 or 3 slides on it, but then really want to turn it over and talk to the alumni who have gone through this program before. So again, it is a 1-year full-time program. I see my students as taking a sabbatical away from their careers for a year to really reskill, create a new foundation of general management knowledge, and doing that through getting content around data-driven general management curriculum, but also creating a lot of flexibility. So they have all of core mostly in the summer, and then the ability to, in the fall and in the spring, and also during January, to create a very flexible, customizable curriculum for themselves, certainly grounded in action learning, but also providing them through this year with an access to resources across MIT and a connection across MIT. I often say to new students or students that I'm interviewing is not to think about this program as a transactional degree. You do go through the program for a year, but this is an invitation to be a part of this community for your life. And so what relationships are you building while you're here to sustain you and sort of build on those beyond as you graduate and perhaps aren't on campus every day anymore? Of course, it is an amazing opportunity for you to immerse yourself into a learning environment, as well as being a part of the amazing Global Sloan Fellows community. And I hope we'll get to learn more about that through our alumni soon. The ideal candidate, so who are we looking for? We're really looking for someone who has at least 10 plus years of experience working full-time after getting their bachelor's degree, that they have experience being leaders and managing businesses, so overseeing business units or overseeing people, that they're committed to a global perspective, We always say they push the status quo, they're challenging the status quo, are used to asking the difficult questions and wanting to make an impact in their organizations and in society. That they're quite comfortable, right? This is MIT. We want students to be wanting to learn more about how do you use data to make decisions and using the science of management to do that. And that does not mean that you need to have a PhD in math, but it means that you need to be curious about how to use math and how to use data in the way that you lead. Someone needs to be able to communicate effectively in English. I often talk to candidates about this. It's not just understanding someone who is fluent in English, but a lot of our students or our faculty have English as a second language. So being able to follow along with people whose language is not first language is not English, just like mine. And so the ability for you to take the most advantage of this education is if your English is quite strong. And then committing yourself to learning a lot about yourself in this experience, really hoping to expand your perspective and the way that you think with the global community that you are learning with, as well as with the faculty. To get a sense of who the Sloan Fellows community are or who the students are, we have about 40 countries represented in the current class. Average years of experience is 14 and a half. Perhaps what's interesting to all of you is it's 31% women in the current class. I will say that is a constant percentage that we are working to increase. We want to have, I will be happy the day that it is 50-50. I can still remember having some conversations with both women and male Sloan Fellows who are, want us to get there. And I believe that we can. And then, of course, some other statistics here around people who already have an advanced degree and the various pre-MBA industries that our students are coming from. We're striving to get as much diversity and different thought and perspective in the classroom so that you have an extremely rich learning environment. So today, like I said, as much as I wanted to give you a high-level overview of the program, I do want you to learn from the best source, which are the alumni who have gone through this program before. And so with that, I want to introduce you to our panelists and would love for them to introduce themselves and share a little bit about who they are, but also why did you choose an MBA? And so, Asha, I will hand it over to you to do your first round of introductions.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. I have a pretty detailed response, so it'll take a few minutes. But for everyone here, my name is Asha Aravindakshan. I'm American, and I studied business finance specifically in undergrad. Before the program, I lived and worked in Washington, D.C., working in operational roles in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors for 15 years. And since the program, I now live and work in New York in tech and working in tech startups. Currently, I serve as a general manager for the US market for Multiverse, which is a British ed tech startup. As far as why I decided to pursue the MBA and why I chose Sloan specifically, I want you to know that I considered applying to MBA programs 3 times before I actually applied. And about 10 years ago, I was running HR operations at a nonprofit, and I wanted to work in startups because I felt like startups, people work really fast and I move really fast. So I attended a Forte MBA forum for women in Washington, D.C., and I heard from a panel just like this of business school alumni reflecting on their experiences. And what they said about the MBA was it brought them competence, confidence, and credibility. And that's when I decided to pursue my MBA to help me with a career to pivot into tech startups. And I debated between full-time and executive MBA programs. I saw a question in the Q&A about this. And it really was only after meeting an admissions representative who explained, after meeting me and hearing my background, that I needed to be in a classroom with my peers who are executives in order to have discussions at the right level that helped me narrow my focus to executive degree programs. So Joe, do you want me to talk about Sloan here, or do you want to come back to that in a bit?
You can feel free to share it right now.
Okay, so through Forte, again, I met a couple of admissions consultants who looked at my profile, and right away they were able to recommend the Sloan Fellows MBA program as the perfect fit for me. And I had already been attracted to Sloan because of the action learning labs, but I thought this program, the Sloan Fellows program, was for international students. And so these admissions consultants clarified for me it was open to all types of students, it was 1 year residential, it was a top 10 program, and it degreed an MBA. And so for me, that checked all the boxes as far as what I wanted in a program. And so one other consideration, of course, was cost. And just so you know, before the program, I was working primarily the government and nonprofit sectors for 10 years. So I didn't have a lot of savings. But once I made that decision to go back to school, I started cutting down my expenses, I think almost 18 months before. And I knew that I would have to take out a student loan. But I knew that I was not going to let the cost of the program deter my motivation to go complete the MBA.
Thank you, Asha. I often hear the piece around the 2 year MBA versus the 1 year and what's the difference. And I agree, the years of experience make a really important factor in whether to choose the 2 year MBA or the 1 year MBA. And we can talk a little bit more about that later if the question continues. Annalisa, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Joe. Hi, everyone. My name is Annalisa Rotunno. I'm originally from Italy. Before joining the Sloan Fellows MBA, I used to be an investment banker across Europe. I've been in charge of a number of activities for the bank I work for, spanning from M&A advisory to equity investment and alternative asset management. Over this 10 years period, I've always I achieved like top results across my the peer group in the bank, and I've always thought about taking a break and doing my 2 years MBA in the first year of my careers. But since I was always able to advance without that, I decided to keep going until when, after a period of time working in a very intensive way on a project, I find myself like almost drying up and reflecting upon my path until then. I realized that I've been always very good at executing, managing, and getting things done. But what I really missed was leadership. Like I really needed to improve my leadership ability, and above all, what I wanted to do was to deep dive into new topics that were very hot at that point and are still very hot now, including fintech, sustainability, and innovation. So I did some research, and I found the Sloan Fellows program, which was a perfect fit for my profile at that time, and was offering exactly what I was looking for in that respect. So I applied, and I was very lucky or fortunate to be accepted. And for me, that has been a very life-changing experience, because as we can probably discuss a little bit more in detail later, the Sloan Fellows program gives you the possibility to really customize your profile and really deep dive into the topics you want to explore, with the probably some of the best representative and of around the world. And so this was my 1 year experience, at the end of which I went back to the bank I was working for. So I took a year off with the agreement of going back to work for them for another year. And since then, actually, this was 5 years ago. So since then, I'm still with the same bank, because what I had the opportunity of doing was to really bring back a lot of knowledge, experience, and new concept that are allowing me to really drive some big changes in the organization I work for. And since then, I got promoted basically 3 times over 5 years. I achieved my the title of managing director, which is for those that are not familiar with banking, the highest recognition in the investment banking. And so I'm very happy I took this decision.
Oh, wonderful. I love when I hear that organizations have been able to take advantage of the learnings that you've had through going through this program and really, obviously, you're a high potential as you're coming in. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been selected, nor given
Yeah.
the time to leave your organization. But I often find, or at times, maybe often is not the right word, but at times that students the companies don't really know what to do with you when you come back and sort of making that shift
Yeah.
from recognizing you as you were in the organization and now with an MBA, seeing what you're able to contribute now. So
Yeah.
what a success story to hear how they have recognized you.
Yeah, I'll be happy to share this more in detail, but just very briefly for the sake of the introduction here. It's actually, you're right. I mean, that's very often that's the case. Organizations are struggling with this very, more sophisticated profile. And so it's also something that the program helped me to guide me over the program over the months at MIT, to see how I could first of all present myself in a different way to the organization, and also bring back content and connections. And so I worked over the various months at the program to really first of all stay in touch with the organization, but also have a let's say not bold way back, but a smooth way back to my role, and then grow my role from there, demonstrating every day what I was able to do more following this experience. Another thing I wanted to add that I probably missed before was that the organization also allowed me to kind of follow my let's call them my dream, but also my ambition, let me say. So my ambitions was to lead a more like a bigger team, focus on innovation and transition geography. And little by little, I was able to do all this. So now I'm in charge of the M&A and corporate development of the bank, with a special angle on innovation. I transitioned to the United States as a permanent location, which was also one of my goals. And yes, I'm leading obviously a larger team because I needed more resources to do that. But yeah, more specifically, the program really helps you to develop the skills that you need to also go back to your own organization. So not only to transition to a new industry, but also to let's say go back and do something more.
Yeah, and I love the point that you also made that it's about you being able to articulate yourself. What's the value add that you're providing to the organization? And the other piece that I want to highlight, which I mean, I think we'll talk perhaps a little bit more later about what this has done for your career, but is the fact that, you know, the steps to where you ultimately want to be isn't necessarily going to happen immediately after the program, right? You went first back. I remember having these conversations with you about wanting to come back to the US or wanting to be here in the US, but first you went back to Italy and then sort of built your way back to where you wanted to be.
That's
Um,
exactly.
so anyway, more about that perhaps later. Ife, will you please introduce yourself?
Yes, happy to. Hi everyone. My name is Ife. I am originally from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm hoping to see a few more Nigerians, at least, or Africans on the chat. So if you do have the time, just hit me up later. I'm happy to share more. In my previous life, I was with a bank. I was the transformation officer for that bank who wanted to do 1,000,001 things at the same time. I was a 24-year-old bank who wanted to move into the 21st century, wanted to launch a digital platform. We wanted to be the barrier input into other countries in Africa. And then I was hired as a former consultant who was expected to know all the answers. So every question about strategy and base ops and this and that always ended up at my table. And then I did that for 3 years. And while we were successful, I was burning the candle at both ends, and I was wiped out. Like my mind was fragmented at this point. I just knew I needed something new. I needed something fresh. I wanted to be the one asking the questions. I wanted to be in a new environment. And I knew it was a big risk because having risen to the level I had risen to in a bank, coming from management consulting, it was a lot I was going to be giving up, but I felt like I just had to do something extra to break out of that bubble. It was scary at first, but then I applied and I got in, and landing in here, it was like I knew I had made the right decision. All the doubt, all the anxiety, all the you're leaving family behind. We're 12 hours away from my family at the moment. All of that, it was still there. But coming here and meeting those in my cohort, it was great. And I knew that it was the right thing for me to do at that time. Now, I know that you don't have a year just yet. And this is me talking in hindsight. So this is for those who are a little anxious, a little on the hesitant side. You feel like you might be leaving someone behind. It's okay to do that at the moment. I did it, and I'm fine and right now. I initially thought that I was going to be a corporate girl, finish my degree, get into Visa or Stripe or Adyen, and then just skyrocket to the top. And now I find myself in a startup, unbelievably. I met my co-founder in my class. We discussed our ideas, we realized we had the same values, wanted to solve the same type of problems. We had similar business problems to solve. So it was just easy to partner up and then form our business, Wire Bank, that provides loan brokerage to import-exporters between Africa and the US. And currently I'm doing that right now. Similar to Asha and Annalisa, it was a lot of research and a lot of trying to figure out what works, but I don't think there's one strict path to my admission process here. It was almost feeling through based on what I felt was right at that moment. So don't be constrained to try to follow a document or something online and try to tailor your experience to what it is you see. It has to feel right for you to apply at the moment. And once you get that feeling, please go right ahead. And then I'm hoping that we'll see you in class of 25.
Wonderful, Ife. And it looks like, unfortunately, Adela was not able to join us today. But I do also want to mention that we have Pam Spencer here from the admissions team at MIT Sloan, who you may be seeing is answering some of the questions in the Q&A. So feel free to continue to ask those questions. Pam heads up the Sloan Fellows admissions. And so super grateful to have Pam here. She has many responsibilities, but that's the one that's perhaps more relevant to right now. And also my peer and good friend, Donna Levinson, is here, who is the Assistant Dean of Admissions. So she oversees all of admissions for MIT Sloan, and delighted to have her join us as well. I'm going to stop sharing my slides so that you can see us all a little bit better, and move us to really talking perhaps a little bit more about the curriculum. And I see that we've had some questions come up about that. Could maybe talk a little bit first about the summer versus the fall, January and spring. A lot of questions about that. And I think you've seen some of the Q&A, but I'll also sort of fill in some of the answers to those if they're not relevant to you. And Ife, why don't we start with you a little bit on this, partially because I'm curious, and we saw the question here too about how does the curriculum, or how did you find time to do your startup as you were thinking through the curriculum?
Honestly, it was unexpected. it was just a random vulnerable conversation I had with a cohort member, and we gave birth to this idea. But again, reflecting on the year, I would say what has worked is being authentic. So being here, not trying to be the smartest person in the room, really curious about what it is you're learning, asking questions, understanding what the mission statement is and what that means for you personally really went a long way for me in understanding why I moved from a corporate to a startup, and in the types of classes I chose, the type of electives, going outside of Sloan to MIT and Harvard and all of that. So it was a very personal, intentional year I had to do this. So sit with yourself and have those, I don't say difficult, have the vulnerable, clear, intentional conversations with yourself and talk to people around you and use the resources it is that you have. And if you realize that what you came in with is to maybe go back home and then improve in your company, or get promoted in your company, or even relocate to the US, and realize halfway that you've changed your mind because you have new information, that's okay. You can change your mind as many times as you want. There's nobody who's going to say, hey, you started on this, then you have to keep on it until the end. As long as you're clear on what you want to achieve and you can articulate that to yourself and share with the people who share your beliefs also, it will be, I don't say easy, there'll be a clear path to do what it is you want to do at the end of the day.
Thank you, Ife. I often provide this advice as students are matriculating into the program. Be clear about the plan and be open for the plan to change. If this is a transformational program, as we say that it is, there will be times as you go through that you will want to try something new, and we want you to do that. At the same time, it is like the best candy store. Sorry, I have a sweet tooth, so that's normally what I compare it to. It is the best candy store you've ever been to, and you can't eat it all. And so having some form of a plan of things you will not do while you're in the program, or at least not during the year that you're here, is equally as important. Asha, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of the core versus you able to customize your program, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So core are the classes that every MBA student is required to take, regardless of the degree program. So to your MBA, Sloan Fellows, Executive MBA will all take core classes. We start taking those core classes in the summer session. We have a full load, 8:30 to 4:30, 5 days a week of core classes. They typically run 2 to 3 weeks each, with double sessions in some of those time periods. When you get into the academic year starting in September, you still have core classes, but not as many, and you're able to add electives. And so this is really where your choice of how you want to customize your program really comes in. And so for me personally, I remember in the summertime when I was picking my classes, my program advisor told me it's really easy to pick the classes that offer hard skills like finance, but it's really difficult to choose the classes that teach you about soft skills. And that really resonated with me. And so I focused the majority of my electives on soft skills, taking classes like managing an adversity, or there was a DEI class at Harvard at the time. I believe Sloan has one now. I also took an action learning lab that had an international travel component to South America. That was amazing to be able to work with a company with a real problem they were having, observe it in person, sitting with them in their offices and going out to sites and then producing a report about our findings. There's also, I think, when you look at your experience at Sloan, there's kind of 4 buckets. It's school, startups, student life, and family. And so you pull and push those levers and where you're spending your time in each of those 4 buckets.
Asha, I love those 4 buckets, sort of thinking about it in those 4 areas. I know we've had a couple of questions here around like, how do you work the schedule around family, or how do you work the schedule around a part-time job or a full-time job? you know, life is all about choices, right? I
Yeah.
think that's really, really important for you all to think about. Do I think it's realistic to do this program with a full-time job? I do not. This is a full-time program. You're only here for a year and you will lose out on so many opportunities, whether that is with the community, whether that's with Sloan, or whether that's across MIT, or fully immersing yourself into some of the content of the courses. Doing this with a full-time job, I don't think it's possible, honestly. And other than that, I think, if you want to do it with a part-time job, I do know that there are students who do some part-time work, whether that's some small consulting gigs on the side. We also have the opportunity, and the Sloan Fellows students particularly can add some great value in being teaching assistants for some of our faculty, and especially around the leadership content, because you all have more experience in that than some of the other degree programs. And so those are opportunities to sort of supplement some income during the year that you're here. The other question that I saw that perhaps makes sense to answer at this point in time is, how do you do this with family? This summer, again, it's 8:30 to about 4, and then there's team assignments on top of that. It is a heavy lift. And so ensuring that during the summer, for sure, you have some extra hands around, whether that's family or, like a college student who isn't doing other work in the summer, or isn't in classes in the summer and can sort of help you out with kids, can make a big difference. Um, but in the fall, I know that I've spoken to a lot of students about how they've basically worked their schedule and the classes that they take for the fall and in the spring around kid drop off and pickup. Again, you are limiting the amount of choices that you have at that point in time. If you are, trying to do both, but life is about choices. And like Asha said, what levers you want to pull during that time is up to you. We know that you're all at a part of time in your life and careers where you're balancing multiple stakeholders, right? Annalisa, I thought it would be helpful to hear from you a little bit about, there's a question here around getting deeper into finance, and you were integral in ensuring that the finance track was available to the Sloan Fellows program at the time. Now, actually, they're all called certificates and are open to all Sloan Fellows, and I think is so amazing for a variety of different reasons. But Annalisa, do you want to talk a little bit about how you fully immersed yourself and created that for the program in the finance area?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for this question, Joe. So, in my court, there were a number of people who were already who were coming from the finance industry, who during the summer had the chance to work with their respective, me included, so our teammates, and kind of increase, let's say, the interest for this topic. And also, Sloan is great in offering a number of classes on that in that topic, on that topic specifically, in different angles. So starting from like the pure or a more traditional accounting to the more innovative class like the fintech lab, or there is a innovation in consumer finance space. So even niche topic that are like very relevant for someone who works in this space. There are a number of classes on blockchain, crypto assets, taught by some of the most impressive professional and leaders around the world. So given the increase in like the very high interest in these classes, and a number of people were going towards these classes in the summer, and which are as Asha was saying, part of the core program, and then deciding to choose these electives in the fall and in the spring, with a few fellows who were coming from the finance industry. We discussed about it, and we thought there was a great idea to be able to give a recognition to those fellows who actually, to the contrary, didn't have a finance background, but actually wanted to transition to the finance industry. And so we talked to Joe, we talked to a few professors who actually gave us a few ideas, and we put together this project that was aimed at identifying classes that were actually a bucket of classes that were considered like core classes, and some more some in the electives area, which could have been chosen to achieve this finance certificate. As Joe was saying, the program was already offering innovation certificate and entrepreneurship, and innovation, and the sustainability certificate. So along the same line, we basically designed this additional certificate, which is an additional recognition for when you go out there and you decide to apply for a job, and you want to show that your profile actually is in line with the requirement of the role you're applying for. Another thing I wanted to add is that also classes that don't really qualify as finance could be, for example, customized, in my case, to follow your personal interest. So, for example, as Asha, I did an action learning class. I went to Asia, in my case, was called China Lab. And as there were a number of projects that were offered as part of the China Lab. So about, there were projects in management consulting, operation, and in finance. So in my case, even a class that didn't qualify as finance could have been customized to mirror your interest. And in particular, I had the opportunity to work for an innovation lab of one of the largest insurance company in the world, whose headquarters is in Shanghai.
Yeah, I love that both of you took action learning courses. I think it is such a great way to really apply what you're learning to a real live example and get experience outside of the US, or which is the area that obviously you're learning a lot about as you're going through the program, or applying it to a startup, right? Like Ife did. The faster you're applying what you're learning to an organization, the stickier the content is. And so MIT's motto of mind in hand, or mens et manus, is live and well at Sloan, and the way that we think about curriculum here. We have two questions, and then perhaps we'll move more into the community aspect. But around how much do we integrate tech? Excuse me. How much do we integrate tech, and how much do we sort of the leadership aspect versus more technical? I don't know who of the three of you would like to touch on that.
I can take it if you want.
Okay.
Okay, so with regard to the tech part, the program allows you, and also the soft skills, let's say both of them, the program gives you the possibility to cross-register to, for example, other university in Boston, but above all gives you the possibility of taking some classes at MIT, so engineering classes and other things that neuroscience, other just to mention a few like tech, let's say technical classes. So of course there is a limited number of credit that then converts into classes for the program. But if you have time, energy, and you want to spend as much time as you want taking additional classes, you can definitely do that. My personal recommendation would be to have, as Asha was saying, a balance between the various buckets. So make sure you have enough time to build your network, to get to know the community, and as well develop a personal relationship, which could be also done taking classes, but it has to all be part of the same project. Yeah, there is enough flexibility around that. Sloan itself offers a number of technical classes, but yeah, the cross registration to MIT is definitely what you probably would look into.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, oh, please, Ethan.
Okay, good. Okay, yes, to add to that, there are a lot of groups, Sloan groups, from entrepreneurship to technology itself, to some bit of engineering, to health, to biotech. Look, there's a travel club. Whatever it is you're looking for, you're going to find a group on Sloan groups, right? So if you want the exposure to people who are building the bots, who are sending their drones flying, who are putting chips into the brain, you'll find a club on Sloan Groups who's involved in that, and then you can join these clubs, pay the membership fees where they're available, and try to get involved in their activities, their conferences, their events, some of their action learning type programs, and then that will give you a good bearing into what it is you'd like to do if you're fully into tech and leadership at the end of the day.
There's also an element of the core classes for the Sloan Fellows called Seminar and Leadership. And so this is where you have alumni or people from industry, executives, senior executives from industry coming in and talking about their experiences. Nothing beats those candid conversations like today's, to hear about what it's like to start a company and run it for 10 years and not have it go public or go IPO or acquisition, or the leadership challenges when you're dealing with large companies going through the recession and things that are happening in the economy. So those are probably the sessions that we learned the most from, especially if they were, alumni that were speaking to us. But that's built into the core curriculum, and plus there are electives that have similar opportunities to hear from executives, industry come into the building and share their experiences.
Yeah, there's a plethora of abilities to learn from alumna. I will also say that we now have a leadership and teams lab course that runs through the core in the summer. That's really helping students understand how to learn a little bit more about themselves. There's executive leadership development coaching as part of that. They do a 360 assessment. As well as team coaching. Another way that I think we do a great job of creating more of an action learning environment is around teams, where you have to work in teams from a variety of different backgrounds, really teaching you how to have broad perspective, be able to work with anyone with strong emotional intelligence. And again, it really comes up to how much you want to focus in a variety of different areas, whether it's more they're called soft skills, right? But really, let's be honest, those are the harder skills than the hard skills. So with that, I want to shift and talk a little bit more about the community. Would you be able to share, and Annalisa, maybe we'll start with you, what was one of your favorite memories?
Yeah, one of my favorite memories was definitely it's a little bit let me say fun. Let's say it's a part of the fun time at MIT. So we actually attended the Sloan Olympics game. So basically the MIT organizes a number of events to integrate students of different courses and different programs. One of these is the Sloan Olympics, which, as the name says, is a sport competition across the different programs. And so at that time, a few fellows took the lead to, let's say, organize a group of fellows to attend this program. So we were training and just we order a few gears to be all coordinated and be let's say a group ourselves, and we ended up winning the competition. So that was a pretty fun moment. Along the same line, another group of us decided to attend to participate to the half marathon of Boston, and same thing, we were training together, taking sometimes before classes or after classes to do our morning run or night run to actually prepare for the marathon. And that was also another moment in which we really built very strong connection with other fellows. I think there is no better way than sport to do that. Yeah, so I said it's more on the fun part, but it's incredible how like the 113 I think you have in your slide, in our case we were 110 fellows there, all come to the program being very open-minded to do things they probably have never done in their life before. Like me, I've never done run enough marathon, but the community actually pushes you to do things and like test yourself to go beyond what you have been doing until that moment.
Thank you for sharing that fun tidbit. Asha, you took yourself off mute. Do you want to
Yeah.
share next?
Yes, I say there's one thing that brings together people more than sport. It's food. And so my favorite memory is every Sunday in the spring, we would get together for barbecues. And it was so nice just to relax and hang out, not just with my classmates, but with their families also. And just everyone just hang out, chill, and just enjoy those Sundays before we knew that we were going to be graduating and starting full-time work again. I miss those Sundays.
To me, one of the most special pieces about this community or about this program is the community and the bonds that you all create with each other. Ife, tell me which one was your favorite, and if you don't share the one I'm going to share, if you're not going to share the one that I think you're going to share, I'm going to share it next.
Please don't share it. Our class was notorious for parties and traveling willy-nilly. Like, I think we had 6-7 trips. We went to Cape Cod, we went to Maine, we went to Utah for the ski long weekend. We went somewhere for, I think we went to Vegas for a couple of people's birthdays. We traveled and partied a lot, to be honest. So please, Joe, let's leave it at that and not share.
That was not what I was going to share. You did. I mean, it's so funny because the current class is always like, Joe, what do you think about us? Every single class has their own persona. And Ife's right, the class of 23 during the summer, I was like, are they studying? And they were. The faculty were definitely happy with them as students. But I do think there was a piece around the importance for them to have a great community and spending a lot of time together. But one of my favorite memories from the class of 23 was the multicultural fair. So it is one of the newer events that we have done over the last year, partially because, I'm sure Asha and Annalisa remember this, is that a lot of the different sort of larger contingencies from one country would create these events where they would share everyone's culture or their own culture. So Japan Night was one that was very popular, and it was amazing. But the people who were just like maybe their only representative from the country, they didn't have sort of the resources and ability to do that. And so we created the multicultural fair, partially because that's what I had when I grew up. And it gives this opportunity for everyone who wants to share their community through food. And Ife's class decided to have a common thread of rice, which was absolutely fascinating to go from one culture to the next and experience how rice is different for everyone. Not only is it delicious, it also becomes a huge dance party. And again, it's the entire community together, sharing, and the kids are dancing. And
those are good times.
It was
really good times. It was good times.
I just want to add, one just thing about, all our stories were about community and the people. And I think that there's a reason for that. You're coming to do the MBA. It's really about the network that you're building, whether it's at Sloan or at any of the degree programs or any of the schools. Yeah, you get a degree and you take all these nice classes and you're going to learn a lot of things, but it's really about the 100 or 200 people that you're in a class with. Those are your lifelong connections. Those are the people that you'll be asking for advice after the program is over. Those are the people you'll be doing business deals with, and all these things. So just keep that in mind. It's not just about the professors and the academic setting. It's about the people who are sitting next to you in the classroom.
Absolutely. I would say it's like a 50-50 split, if not perhaps even more so on the community side. And it's certainly the people that you are learning with. And we often hear that students learn as much, if not more, from the people that they're taking the courses with as they do from the faculty. And I would broaden that too, right? It's not just the students that you're working or you're learning with, but the connections that you're making at Sloan, the connections you're making throughout MIT. As Annalisa shared, you have the opportunity, and I think Asha talked about this too, right? You have the opportunity to take courses outside of Sloan. And again, going back to one of my earlier points, if you have your direction and what the goals you're hoping to get out of the experience, that's going to really influence how you spend your time, where you're putting your priorities. Maybe I'm trying to be a little conscious of time here. We've talked a little bit about career goals and how this degree helped you with where you were going next. There are some questions that I just wanted to address around career switching and sort of what percentage of our students do that. Maybe just a couple of words from me, and happy for any of the other panelists to share their insight. We really think about our students in three different buckets. It is the advancers, so the students who are looking to advance within their career, staying in the same industry, staying in the same function, often thought about as the sponsored students, but even those who are taking the sabbatical and are looking to go back into the same industry, same function, those are the advancers that we think of. And then they're career switchers. And the career switchers are looking to switch location, so perhaps trying to work in the US or work in a different part of the world than they have had experience in, but also people who are looking to switch career industry or looking to switch function. And I think the piece I will say is that we have a career development office that is very dedicated to the Sloan Fellows population. They actually receive more one-on-one coaching time than any of our degree populations. And that is because our students are so diverse, both in terms of their backgrounds of where they are coming from, but also in terms of where they want to go, and because of the stage that they're in their career, being mid-career executives, they're not going to find their next role because of something that they're looking at on, any sort of job sites, right? They're going to find their next opportunity because they have made a connection with someone who's either creating a role for them, or they know the internal workings within their organization to know that a more senior role is available to them. And so doing a networked approach, knowing how to talk about yourself, and then having those conversations externally become really important. And so the career development office is for that. The third group, which sort of could be lumped into the idea of career switchers, but because of our rich entrepreneurial ecosystem, really think about them separately, are those that are looking to be entrepreneurs. And there is certainly the Martin Trust Center for Entrepreneurship, but even our career office are there to help our students navigate making choices in that area. More broadly, I think it's important to think about our students in the area of moving from success to significance, and perhaps full circle back to our mission. Our students are looking to make a bigger impact, to have their jobs have more meaning, and that they want to be fulfilled and want to have their job mean something, and that they're making this world a better place. especially as we wake up and look at the news and see all the opportunities to create a better world for all. So with that, I know we only have 5 minutes left. Do the three of you have any advice for those who are sitting on this call? And am so excited to see how many of you have joined us today. So thank you. But any last advice that you would have for anyone who's thinking about joining the Sloan Fellows MBA program? Annalisa, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I saw actually a question there was a question about the difference between men and women and in the MBA program, and probably I would take this question to give this advice, which is there is absolutely no difference. You don't have to think about you as a woman, sorry, but you as a professional who has been doing a number of things until this moment, and so achieved a number of results, and so you have to just start from that and see where do you want to go next. And the program would give you the flexibility if you have the time and the opportunity to take this year off, which is the main question. I think this program is very enriching and is really the right opportunity to because it's flexible enough and customizable enough to really achieve and deep dive in whatever topic and thing you want to do next.
Thank you. Ife?
Yes, be courageous, have courage and apply. You may or may not get in, but still have courage and apply. A year will go by, a year can go by with a degree or without a degree. So my advice is just to have courage, be brave, and apply.
I love that advice. Asha?
Mine's very similar, but I'll put in the framing of our motto. So Joe mentioned our motto is Mensi Manus, which means mind and hands. And at my graduation in 2017, Apple CEO Tim Cook recommended it should be mind, hand, and heart. And so I think once you make the decision to pursue the MBA in your mind, do not let anyone deter you. You're going to question the cost of the time. You'll get thrown into a bigger position at work, or maybe you've thrown more money to stay. You'll get others, sharing their doubts about why you shouldn't go pursue an MBA at your age. And I'm telling you, stay the course, follow your heart, and earn the degree. And I hope you'll pick the Sloan Fellows program and become part of our amazing community. Good luck.
Oh, Asha, what a lovely way of finishing this out. Thank you. Thank you so much to the panelists. Thank you, Pam and Donna, for organizing and being here. I couldn't agree more. One of the things that impresses me the most about the Sloan Fellows students is their courage to take a year off, to bet on themselves, and to really create the space to reinvent themselves. And I also hope you all think a little bit about whether this is the next right step for you. Know that we're here to support you. And especially as you become a student, we as a program team really see ourselves as a partner with you as you go through this program. To support you, whether it's in the studies or in the life aspects that belong that you have around you. We know that it has been a long time since a lot of you have been to school, so we create opportunities for you to sort of refresh some of your math skills, to reintegrate you slowly as you are starting from April to the first day of classes, to get you organized, whether that is family, academics, and there's a lot of support, whether it's the teaching assistants who can meet with you one-on-one, but also in a group setting, or it is the advisors who are assigned to you from my team who are there to help walk you through and sort of try to share some of the learning from the previous classes. But again, there is nothing that can get in your own way more than yourself. And so I really hope that you bet on yourself and know that we're here to support you. And I hope to see you in one of the future classes and we get to enjoy this road of transformation as you transform yourself to get ready to transform organizations and the world that so desperately needs global leaders who want to be part of the solution to the many problems that we see facing us today. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, panelists, again, and I hope to see you all soon.